everyone, this is Michael Virardi, author of 2 best-selling books, Positive Impact and Crisis, Let's Beat It. And on today's Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, I'm going to be talking about the circle of trust. What you don't know about what's pushing your people away and what you should know about getting your customers' loyalty. Tune in.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us here on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we'll be looking at trust in the corporate environment, in the family business, in business generally. What does it really take to gain it and keep it? If you're a new listener, new viewer to the show, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in, we're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, we want to thank you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, and we're honored to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. The GNA also cited us as the top 10 podcast for HR pros and employers. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. We really appreciate it. Remember, we always need your help to stay relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, are you ready to jump in? Well, let's strip it down and dive right in. Watching and listening to this show, you are either a high-level executive, an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a leader in some capacity. And as a leader, you know that no matter how much control that we think we have in business, whatever it takes, at some point, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. But when the crisis hits, as it inevitably will, who'll be by your side? Will your people jump ship, or will you have built enough trust with them that they'll be willing to stay shoulder to shoulder with you and bail? Our guest today is joining us from Europe, specifically from Cyprus, Mr. Michael Virardi. Now, Michael is a best-selling author of several books, including A Positive Experience, 26 Ways to Differentiate Yourself, and Crisis, Let's Beat It. There it is. Fabulous book. But last but not least, Michael is also a visiting professor, no less, of the University College London. Yes, his energy, enthusiasm, and vast knowledge have made him one of the most sought-after speakers at company events, training sessions, conferences, both in Cyprus and 12 other European countries, in the Middle East, and in the United States. Michael has given seminars to various large prestigious organizations such as Ericsson, Microsoft, McDonald's, Bayer. His keynote presentation is The Circle of Trust, and that's where we're going to go today, is look at that circle of trust so that you can avoid crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Michael Virardi. The crowd goes wild. Good to have you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Allow me to congratulate you on your podcast. I've been following it for quite some time now, and on your work. Congratulations for all the awards, about Inc. mentioning you, and good afternoon or good morning to all your fans and friends as well.
Well, that's very kind of you, Michael. Thank you very much. Now, I read in the book, you and I have had some great conversations. You explained some things that most successful companies, you looked at them, you examined them, and you found certain themes. One of which was this distinction between external and internal customers. Share with us, because I think that this is something we've got to get if we're going to move into trust. I want people to understand this. Share with us what you mean when you talk about this concept of internal customers versus external customers.
Thank you very much for your question. First and foremost, I truly believe that a company serves two kinds of customers. It serves its internal customers, first and foremost, because you are as good as the people you hire on board. And as one of my favorite saying goes, first-rate people hire first-rate people, while second-rate people hire third-rate people. So the people...
Yes, I've seen a bit of that.
So the people you hire, the people you have on board, because as you said in one of your podcasts, in one of your videos, will the people stay or jump ship when the crisis hits? Are the people who are going to make you or break you at the end of the day. One of my most favorite proverbs is an African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. Yeah. And companies in the US, in Canada, or in Europe and all over the world, they should take care first and foremost of their internal customers, which is the premise of the circle of trust. So those customers, the internal customers, can take care of the external customers. Because at the end of the day, we don't want only satisfied customers. We want loyal customers who will come back again and again and again. Because if I'm not mistaken, in Fiercely Loyal, you mentioned that the cost of an employee, it's 1.5 to 2 times its
annual salary.
The annual salary. So it's the same thing with your internal and your external customers. You cannot afford to lose any of them.
So when you say internal customers, who are those people? Just so everybody's clear, who are those?
Those people are your associates, your coworkers. What other trainers call employees? I don't like the word employee. I like the word associate because you associate looking into the future, looking into your vision, into your mission. So those people are your associates. They are the people who stand side by side in other departments or in the same department as yours. They are your colleagues.
You know, it's interesting because, you and I met through a mutual friend who is very big in the sales world. And one of the things that him and I have spoken about is that leadership is sales. And it's interesting because you're, in fact, saying the same thing. Because if you're going to lead, you are selling, i.e. that they are your customers, and those are the people who you presently call your employees or your associates or whatever, team members or whatever even title you use. But you have to sell the vision, the purpose, the mission, the values of that organization, and actually genuinely sell that you're worth staying with. You know, so I love that you've made this distinction so that people actually get, because we think we in business we tend to be so externally focused on the customer, the person with the cash. But one of the ways I think that we measure profitability, or need to measure profitability, is not just cash made but cash lost. And cash lost is, as you just pointed out, 1.5 to 2 times an annual salary of somebody who's leaving you. So you've got to really pay attention to that. It's a great distinction, internal versus external customers. I love it.
Totally correct. You couldn't have summed it better. Shout out to Lahad Zvi, who's the person who has brought us together. I'm so happy he did because I met another excellent personality in Dov Baron, and I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's very kind. Now, in your book, Crisis Let's Beat It, you speak about a particular tragic incident that took place on a Norwegian island, and it's called the title of that chapter is called The 16-Minute Difference. Tell us a little bit about why that particular lesson shows up in a business book.
Yes, the reason
I think it's profoundly important.
Yes, many lives were lost at that time. I shouldn't be going into all the details, but at the end of the day, the Norwegian police apologized. They apologized for being late 16 minutes. If they weren't late for 16 minutes, I believe most of those lives could have been saved. It goes to show that people in power, people in leadership positions should have the courage and the guts to apologize and say they're sorry. If you do that, whole civilizations change. It starts from the country, it moves on to the neighborhood and to the town, to the neighborhood, down to the company, external, internal employees. And at the end of the day, the best example of leading is leading by example. And that's exactly what I try to do on a daily basis with also my young son who's 4 years old. We have to lead by example. Absolutely. Because last night he told me, Dad, we have the air conditioning on. You told me to wear my shirt, but you're not wearing your shirt. How come? So my internal customer was totally correct.
Nothing like having your own stuff thrown back at you. It's fabulous.
Exactly.
It's fabulous.
Exactly. So I had to wear a shirt, Dove. I had to wear a shirt. In Cyprus, it's very warm at the moment. Very, very warm. And I'm flying off to Israel in a few days, which is warmer in Tel Aviv. So, yes, what can I do?
It's fascinating.
So that was the purpose. And congratulations to you, because you just spotted one of the chapters which has to do with leadership. As leaders, or people who consider themselves as leaders, or even managers for that matter, they have to know when to reward people, when to apologize to people, chastise, and everything.
This to me is one of the greatest challenges of leadership. You know, you and I have been doing this a long time, and we both have the honor and we're graced to be in, boardrooms and with great leaders, and it's a wonderful thing. And at the same time, the clash of the egos is like the clash of the titans very often. And for that person in the godlike role to actually say, I was wrong, is oftentimes like getting blood from a stone. And, that's why I loved that particular chapter in the book, because here was the leader of the police force who said, we need to apologize. People say, well, what's the point? I mean, what's the point of apologizing? It's already done. Wow, if that's your mentality, if that had been the mentality of the Norwegian police, would anybody have ever trusted them again? And this is one of the things that people, I think, make a vast mistake on. Apology is a genuine apology, but genuine, heartfelt apology is not just saying that you're sorry for something. It's not just saying that you're accountable. It's saying that you have compassion. It's saying that you have empathy. It's saying that you get the bigger picture and that you're holding yourself accountable to not repeat the cycle. And if you don't, as you just said beautifully, if you don't lead by example with that, then you are going to sell everybody else in your organization that, listen, if you screw up, if you balls up, if you make a mistake, just shove it under the rug. And then meanwhile, you as the leader, when you find that, you're going to be furious. And you're going to be like your son going, where's your shirt?
Correct.
But you've led that path. And this is, for me, that's why I love that piece. It's like one of the things I say all the time is, if you're going to be a great leader, you've got to learn how to apologize. But I get that it's ingrained in us not to apologize, because if I apologize, I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm not as valuable. And it's actually the opposite. If you can own that you're wrong, then you are a great leader.
Yes. It takes a man to apologize, or it takes a woman to apologize for that matter. And you need to own up to your mistakes, so you can improve, first of all, but then the society or your microcosm can improve at the same time.
Absolutely.
So yes, it's totally correct. Totally correct.
Let's talk about the circle of trust, which is what your keynote was on. I loved it. It was fabulous. And I liked, it was simply laid out and with great examples, as I said in my endorsement of it. Let's walk people through the circle of trust, because I think that trust is something that it's black or white. And what I mean by that is that people either take it completely for granted. Of course, my people trust me. I'm the boss. Or it's completely the other side, which is, I don't care if they trust me. I pay them. They just got to do what I tell them. And they don't realize the impact of a lack of trust. Let's talk about the elements of trust and let's work our way through them.
Excellent. First and foremost, let me say what I consider to be trust, or especially trust in a sales relationship, for example. I always say that in sales, every interaction starts with high tension and low trust. Your aim is to lower the tension and increase the trust by arriving early, by keeping your promises, by sending what you promise you're going to send. So I always believe that it's not about sales, it's not about selling to someone, because you don't go to them, you don't go to your wife, darling, let's go be sold. You say, let's go buy. So at the end of the day, it's about an interaction, turning a transaction, which is an exchange of goods and services with money, to an interaction, which is an exchange of emotions before any goods and services are exchanged.
That's right.
So I truly believe in trust. And that trust, through the circle of trust, which I'm going to be explaining just now, can go deep into the organization, to the internal and external customers, as we analyzed them before. So the circle of trust is a circle that works clockwise. It starts at the top with the team, and it works way clockwise. I say a team because, as I said in the beginning, one of my favorite proverbs is the African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with others.
Yes.
Or as the great basketball player Michael Jordan once said, it takes a player to win a game, but it takes a team to win the championship.
Right.
So we need a team in place. So the first and most important circle is the team. So if you have a solid team in place, then the circle of trust starts to work clockwise. Then it goes to the individual. An individual can make or break a team.
Yes.
An individual can show the number one reason why people stop doing business with a company, which is no other than indifference. Indifference, talking on the phone, not paying attention to my customers. Indifference is promising to do something and forgetting all about it. So that's the number one reason. An employee, even an associate, even the lady on the phone or the man who's answering the phone, the telephone operator, can show indifference and lose your customer or your client forever. Or they can show enthusiasm, which comes from the Greek word entheo, which means, yes, the God within to the outside world, and win them over. Be pleasant, be polite, go that little extra mile. And that employee can really save the day, make the day, or ruin the day at the end of the day.
Let's just stop there for a moment, because I think that, so we get it that you've got to have a team. I mean, of course, there's a complexity to that, because getting that team in place is a whole other piece.
That's a whole other thing.
We could spend a couple hours just on that alone. But this piece around the individual, because, the old adage, which is you're as strong as the weakest link, etc., all those things. And I think that it's, one of the things that we do a lot of work around emotional intelligence when we work with a company. And one of the things we talk about is mood management. And mood management is not about putting on a smiley face and pretending, because that's bullshit. And people see that and they can read that so quickly. They can tell if you're fake. That's not the same as genuinely, absolutely showing up and being present even when stuff is going on. I was having a conversation with actually my brother yesterday, who was just flown in from the UK, who I haven't seen in 10 years. And we were talking about something that's been going on and that had been quite traumatic. And he said, yeah, and I watched your show that you did the other day, but I think you did the show live after I'd spoken to you. One of my live, because I do 2 live shows a week. Yes. And I said, yeah. And he said, but didn't I speak to you just before that? And I said, yeah, it was about half an hour before. And he goes, well, you were pretty upset when we spoke. We got some bad news in the family, somebody's health. And I said, yeah, I was very upset. And he goes, and then you did your show. And I said, yeah, but guess how I felt right after the show? And he said, I don't know. You seemed like you're okay. I go, no, I was sad again. And he said, I don't understand. I go, that's mood management. I feel what I feel. It's real. I accept that. And now I know this is not the place for it. And I let myself be fully present with my audience while I'm serving. And then once I've done with that, I'm allowed to go fully back to my feelings and not pretend that it didn't happen and it's not real. And this is such a piece that is not understood with leaders, not just employees, but with leaders. They're in a pissy mood and they start taking it out on their teams. And as a result, now that person who was getting the backlash of that, the old adage, which is dad shouts at mom shouts at the eldest kid shouts at the youngest kid shouts at the dog, and the dog bites the cat. I mean, at some level, there's a ripple effect of the negative behavior. And that understanding of I need to be present, and if I can't do something about it, I need to do something about it. That individual piece, the level of personal responsibility, whether you are the receptionist, whether you are the janitor, or whether you are the CEO, that is a thing I think is missed so often.
I truly agree with you. First and foremost, I hope your relative is feeling better or they recover.
Thank you.
If it's not something that's too bad, but I truly agree with you because that's the level of responsibility. I even noted down the mood management. I loved it very much. I think you're totally correct. And you're not playing a role here. You're serving people. And your internal or external customers, your fans and your friends, you need to serve them. And that shows that Dov Baron is present irrespective of challenges, irrespective of hurdles. How you build the team, it's a completely different thing. We shouldn't be going into all of that. But as the great football player Alex Ferguson once said, he was a football player, but he was also a coach, the manager of Manchester United, as you know quite well, with 37 trophies under his belt. He said that 8 players should play well, not 11, because you cannot get all 11 playing at par at the same time. So even if you get 8 of your team players playing well, and then you select those 8, and those 8 do perform, your company will still perform. But one of the most important players is yourself, is the leader at the end of the day. So this mood management, I love it. I totally agree with it. And the leader counts as one individual in the circle of trust. That's one individual, an individual who can make or break, who can influence the mood. So mood management is fantastic. I love it.
Fabulous. So we've got team, we've got the responsibility of the individual.
And then we move on to the attitude. And that's what we've been talking for so long. We're talking about your brother. We're talking about what happened in the UK, the phone call you got from the UK. And because I love Proverbs, and there's something you love as well, because I'm reading you, I'm following you. One of my favorite Proverbs, I saw it in the office of the Microsoft, head of Microsoft for Cyprus, Malta, Mr. George Petrakidis, said the following: 2 things define a person. His patience when he has nothing, and his attitude when he has everything. So in our case, my dear friend, if I'm talking about Dov Baron, you have everything. You have a great brain, you have a great followership, you have a great podcast, you have a great potential. I feel lucky as well. I'm not going to be talking about myself, but all your followers have things that people from Ethiopia might not have at the same time, or people from other less fortunate countries. So it's the attitude of gratitude that you bring to your game set on a daily basis that will determine your outcomes.
Absolutely.
So the team goes on to the individual, moves on to the individual's attitude, and then moves on to the next subcircle, which is the little extra.
I loved this piece, and I loved this piece when I watched the keynote on that little extra, because the way that I had a conversation. My wife and I teach a lot of communication skills, and one of the things we'll ask is, what is the difference between a great husband and a good husband? What is the difference between a good wife and a great wife? And, people start throwing things out, and we've often said, it's something very small. What it is, I don't know, because it depends on that particular marriage or that particular relationship. But that, in that little relationship, so, I have heard female friends say to me, I love, just spontaneously say, I love my husband. And I'll say, well, tell me why. And they go, he always puts the toilet seat down. But that's it. That's an example of that little extra. Tell us what you mean by it. Because when I read that, I was like, when I listened to that, I thought that was great.
About the little extra you're talking about. Yes, of course. But let me say something just before I say about the little extra. That question of yours really puzzled me. I wrote it down. I loved it. I'm going to look into it. What's the difference between a good wife and a great wife? And one of my mentors once asked me, would you like your wife to be satisfied or would you like her to be loyal? And I still didn't get the answer for that. I'm trying to find out. So you puzzled me with another question now. In the little extra, when I was in Berlin delivering my speech, my winning speech for that matter, because as you know, it won the first prize, I talked about a chapter of mine, which is in another book, which I haven't sent to you. Hopefully I will send it to you soon, The Positive Impact. And that chapter is titled 10 times 10 times 10. So people judge you from 10 meters away, 10 inches away, and from your first 10 words. From 10 meters away, I said people judge your appearance.
Sure.
I wish they judged our heart. I wish they judged our kindness. But at the end of the day, in the case of men, 80% of our skin is covered by our clothes. In case of women, I don't know, 70, 60, 50. So they judge our appearance. So
Sure.
Dress as the best professionals in your industry are dressed. That's the little extra for the 10%, for the times 10, the first 10. The second 10 is the 10 inches away. People judge your aura, your body language, your smile or lack of it. As the Chinese say, the person who cannot smile should not open a shop. Yes, and there are two ways to make yourself look more beautiful. One is do what you do, smile, or the second one is to have a plastic surgery, which costs a lot and it's more painful. So it's best to smile.
I have no money. I'll just walk around and smile.
Yes. So guys, book your next seminar with Dov so he can take his plastic surgery as he wants. And then people judge you from your 10 first words.
Yes.
And in that speech, I talked about positive and negative words.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me give one example so our friends can understand, because I don't want to take all your time up. Unfortunately, it's a negative word. Somebody calls the theater in Canada. Give me a name of a theater in Canada. Do you have any names?
A theater?
Yeah, any name of a theater.
Stanley
Any
Theater.
name. Stanley Theater. This is let's say it's a Monday. Stanley Theater. This is Dov speaking. How may I help you, please? Yes, we would like 2 tickets for the performance. Unfortunately, there are no tickets until Friday. Let's go and see it now in a positive manner, in a positive way. Still, it's a Monday and still no tickets available. Stanley Theater, this is Dov speaking. How may I help you, please? Yes, we would like 2 tickets for the performance, please. You are in luck, sir. We have 2 tickets for Friday's second performance at 8 o'clock, 4th row, excellent viewing. Would you like us to reserve those? It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment your customer starts hearing the word unfortunately, they start thinking of alternative solutions, going to the cinema, going to a restaurant, or doing something else. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Words like unfortunately, no, I will try, are all negative words. And positive words are the ones that I explained in my speech, the circle of trust, which we can link it to all your audience, so I have to go to all of it. So that little extra, based on the 10 times 10 times 10 rule, is what transforms internal customers, associates, colleagues, into that little extra, into extraordinary.
You know, it's interesting because I think if we do a survey with leaders and say, do you do the extra? Do you do that little extra? The challenge I find is that they think they do. And this is the challenge. And again, like your friend said about being, do you want your wife to be satisfied or loyal? It's very much this, is that you can't assume that extra. You can't assume that it's perceived as extra. And the analogy I've given many times is every Friday night you come home and you give your wife flowers and you tell her, this is your way of saying that you love her. So you bring her flowers every Friday, you bring her a couple of roses, and that is wonderful. And she's excited and she's delighted and it's marvelous for a month, maybe 6. And then after a year, it's like, yeah, thanks, whatever. Because now it's no longer the little bit extra. And so the false assumption is that my little extra counts continuously. It doesn't. It is a decreasing value. So please understand this, leaders. It's a decreasing value. The little bit extra you do is worth less tomorrow than it was today. And so if you go, but I do this for my people and I do that for my people, blah, 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 and you consistently do that, should you continue to do those things? Absolutely. But you should do something specific and subjective, meaning you need to find out the people on your team and your customers and find out specifically what that little extra is for them. As I said, for one lady, it was that he puts down the toilet seat, and for her that was like blissful because her friends would complain that their husbands never put the seat down and they would fall in the toilet in the middle of the night. this is what it takes. It's this paying attention to what it is subjectively. It's vitally important.
Totally correct. And I won't talk about my wife. I will talk about Dov Baron, the person that I've met over a month ago, 2 months ago, and he has been giving me that little extra information, that little extra advice, inviting me on his podcast. He has sent me his book. He has asked nothing from me in return for the last 2 months. So that little extra, and I don't know if this is leadership, I don't know if this is appreciation, I don't know how you call it, I don't know if you call it mood or move management. At the end of the day, you're a giver, and that little extra has manifested itself. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir. That's really gracious of you, and I sincerely appreciate it. But for me, this is what I think that we get very caught in the strategies and tactics of leadership, and we forget that number one thing leadership is relational. If you don't know how to have healthy relationships, you are dead in the water. You could be the best strategist in the world, but nobody will follow you. You have the best strategy in the world, and everybody's like, yeah, but you're an ass. I can't work with you.
You are totally correct, and that's why the next sub-circle is relationships.
Yes.
The next sub-circle in the circle of trust is relationships. And as Howard Schultz from Starbucks once said, we're not in the coffee business serving people. We're in the people business serving coffee.
Absolutely.
And the same holds true for everyone. And anyone who's listening in who hasn't yet realized that they're in the people business have only but to lose. And in the people business, you need what you have, Dov, and this is not a compliment because you invited me, promptness. You need to be prompt. You need to be efficient because even if you're 1 in a million, let's say speaker, trainer, in a 7 billion world of ours, there are another 7 million Dov Barons.
That's a good point.
You cannot be the best in what you do, but you can be the best in what others don't. Be prompt, be passionate, be enthusiastic, and that's exactly because I always ask my customers, why did you hire me for that keynote? What was the reason that you have hired me for that training, for that public speaking event? And they always tell me, 9 out of 10, not you were the best, you were prompt. You were prompt. And that's why I have an article titled 7 times 7 times 7. I either answer my emails in 7 seconds, 7 minutes, or in 7 hours after I complete the seminar. And now that I met you, I have to have another number because there is a time differential.
But that is so clear and so astute that I think that it's not about what you do, but it's about the willingness to do things that others won't do or don't do. I've always said that leaders are people who do the things others just don't do. And it's the things that they just take for granted. And I know, I mean, you and I, we're very blessed. We get to meet extraordinary human beings from around the world. And sometimes, I got to tell you, this is me. It's my bias. I totally own it. Sometimes I'm speaking with somebody and I'm actually thinking, how the hell did you ever get to where you are? And the answer is very simple. You couldn't today. So they got to that place, and this is the arrogance that they go, well, I'm this and that. And I'm thinking, if I put you in a time machine and I start your career so that you're now 25 today, as opposed to being 55 or 60 today, those people would never make it. Because millennials want relationship, they want you to have integrity, they want you to do that little bit extra, they're relationship driven, all the things that you're talking about in trust. They want to be part of a team, they want to be collaborative, but they want to be recognized as an individual. They want you to have a great attitude with them so that they can have a great attitude with you. And they want it to be relational. So this whole circle of trust makes perfect sense for leaders and for anybody, because for me, life is leadership. You're having impact. Leadership is impact. You're having impact, whether it's on your son or your daughter or your friend or whoever it might be. So walk us through what's the next piece on this clock?
The next piece after relationships is trust. because you're giving a bucket of cement and a bucket of water at the end of the day. You can either build a stepping stone or a stumbling block. So from relationships, we move on to trust.
But I want everybody to get this, because this is what I think is really important. We're 2/3 of the way around the clock, and now trust comes up. This is called the circle of trust. It isn't in the first place. This is your mistake, folks, is thinking that you can work on trust first or that it comes at the end. It actually is 2/3 of the way through. And when I listened and watched that keynote, I thought that was very clever, that you actually got them to see that it isn't right at the beginning and it isn't right at the end. Walk us into that. That's really important, Michael. I love that.
Totally correct. Totally correct. And then we move on to trust, because yes, you need to have a team. The individuals need to play at a different level, have the right attitude, give that little extra. Relationship starts forming, which is one level below trust, because we have begun a relationship 2 months ago, but we need to be consistent in that relationship.
Yes.
The same Dove Baron that I saw 2 months ago, 1 month ago, and today has to be the same Dove Baron that's coming in the next month. So consistency for me is key. Once I see that consistency, once you see my consistency for that matter, then we move on to trust. That's exactly what lawyers say. When you lose your head, you lose your case. So if we lose our head in the process, we might lose our case.
Right.
And trust is very important. And in the keynote, I gave an example because I always say, also in my public speaking courses, you need to drop an anchor. You need to drop a left statistic or a right statistic, a right stat, which is a story. So I gave a true story, and I said that one of the biggest companies in the world that makes its money through advertising really understands this trust factor. It really understands what I said in the beginning, that sales is all about tension and trust. You need to lower the tension and increase the trust. And that company is no other than Google. If you go into Google to search for anything, in their homepage, you will not see a single advertisement like you used to see with Yahoo.
No.
Or you might even see it again, but I've never visited Yahoo for the last how many years. So you don't, because they want to deliver value first and then ask for something in return. Then they will tag you, then they will follow, and Google AdWords will start coming into play. So that's the best example. The same example that I mentioned earlier about you. You have given me 2 or 3 things. You have given me your platform, being on the #1 leadership podcast for the top 500 companies, Fortune 500, and you have not asked anything in return. So that, for me, my friend, is trust. And then reciprocity kicks in. So you move from relationships to trust. And if you do that, because you have completed the circle by going back to the team, but now your team is not 100 people, it's not 1,000 people, depending on the size of your company. It's 101, it's right. 1,001, because your customer, your external customer, has come on board.
Yes.
With positive word of mouth, and they're not even on your payroll. It doesn't cost you 1.5 or 2 times, as you said, in Fiercely Loyal. It costs you 0.
Right.
And they're not on your payroll, but they're on your team.
Absolutely.
And that's where the magic of the circle of trust happens. And your internal customers are even more loyal because they see the results, they see your company prospering, and it's a win-win-win for all parties involved.
Yeah, it's so powerful and so sadly missed so often that we've got to address that. And by the way, in each of the pieces there, if you get a chance, and like Michael said, we will give the link out for you to go and watch the Circle of Trust. But Michael gives you these great examples for you to just grasp what it is, what each of these things are, in a way that allows you to really see it. And it doesn't, many of these things are, for me, are little but accumulative. They're little but accumulative. If I see an article that I think, oh, Michael would really like this, I share that article with Michael. I let Michael know that that's on my mind. You've done the same with me. You've been generous in that same way. This is the thing, is that I think that I've said many times, leadership, business, family business particularly, it's about relationships. And if you have to think of it, which is part of my original training, but you have to think of it as a marriage. And if you take your partner for granted, it's very simple. They'll go somewhere else. If you don't fall in love with your customer, they'll go somewhere else. And if you don't fall in love with you, as you say, your internal customer, the people who work with you and for you, they will go somewhere else. Because, listen, you don't have to stay in a shitty marriage. You don't have to stay in a shitty job. That world has changed. And you don't have to stay with a shitty provider, because that world has changed. It's a hyper-competitive, and that's a good thing, because it makes each of us pay more attention and saying, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I don't want to. I mean, I remember when I moved to Canada, at 21 years old, the first time, and I moved here, and there was Bell Canada was the phone company. There was no contest, so they could do whatever the hell they liked. They could charge you insane amounts of money for long distance calls. They could do whatever it was. In Australia, when I lived in Australia before I moved back to Canada, there was one airline. They could do whatever they wanted. As competition explodes, this calls us to build that circle of trust more and more and more. So this is why I wanted to have you on the show, because this is why this is so relevant for people, is that circle of trust is more important today than it has ever been. And if you want to have a point of differentiation, each one of those pieces is your point of differentiation. But not only that, if you want to make a point of differentiation, then understand that you do live in a hyper-competitive world, and that it is your relationships and the trust built in those relationships that will change absolutely everything. I love it.
Totally correct. And if I cannot, as we are serving the most informed, the most demanding, and the most knowledgeable customer of all times.
That's also very true, yeah. You can't assume your customer is an idiot anymore. Because they're well-read. We know that now 70% of people will at least research online before they purchase from you.
Totally correct. Totally correct.
So you can blow smoke up their skirt, but the truth is they've already looked at it. They already know it. They've already compared it. Even lazy people who don't want to really do that kind of research, and I don't mean that negatively as in lazy. It's just like they don't care. Even they do some research. But the average customer is now doing massive research. So, Michael, tell us, because I think this is important for all of us to grasp. We are all on a journey. We're all working through stuff. We're all building our businesses. All of our listeners are in business in some way, shape, or form. And I think it's very easy to either get to a place and feel like I'm good, or to get to a place where you are still trying to grow, but it's so difficult to say I'm struggling and to actually ask for help. And I love that my guests on the show are full Monty. They reveal, because I think it's important for us to inspire our listeners and our viewers who are, whether at the very top of their game or they're aspiring to the top of their game, to understand that the process of growth and development never ends. What is one problem or challenge that you're currently working on in your own business?
Excellent question. And yes, we're all human, we're all humane, we all have challenges. And one of the biggest challenges that I've been working in my business, I even asked for your advice, is the fact that I need to define myself. Mm-hmm. Cyprus is a very small place, 800,000 population. There are cities in the United States or in Canada which might have more people than we have in the whole country. So to make ends meet, you have to be all things to all people. Mm-hmm. But this is not the way you specialize. So when I first began, they used to call me, Michael, can you give us a seminar on time management? Of course. Michael, can you give us a seminar on goal setting? Of course. Michael, can you help us with our presentation skills? Of course. And then I had to manage my nose as I was going outside of Cyprus into the Middle East and Europe and the United States. So now with my brand new website coming up, I have a feeling, and I'm still struggling on it, but I'm getting there, to manage my nose, say what I don't do and say what I do, First and foremost, to myself and to my personal assistant and seminars coordinator, Marina Dipleru, and then to our customers. We need to communicate that. So we have to do less things in order to be more specialized. And I think that's the biggest challenge, not for anyone like you and myself, like yourself and myself, but for anyone to communicate what they do. And I'm not talking about the elevator pitch, because I'm not into that. I'm talking about really understanding where you can give value to the other person that exceeds the money they pay for your services.
It's interesting. I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine. He's actually been a guest on our show, Mark Levy, and he's a brilliant man around branding. And if you're looking at this issue, I would recommend that you go watch that show, Mark Levy, Levy. And one of the things that he talked about is getting so clear on what you do that is of most value to them. Because when they come to you and say, Michael, can you do us a program on time management? And you go, yeah, I'm good at time management. The truth is you can. But is that your maximum value? Is that where, and the question becomes, where's the maximum value? And I just loved that, because for those of us who've been doing this a long time, yourself, myself, we've been doing this a long time. We have a broad knowledge. There's all kinds of things we could do, but the question is, where do they see the most value? And I think it's an important challenge that I think probably many leaders, particularly entrepreneurial leaders, are facing today in a world of niche, in a world of specialists. It's very important. What would you say is the most practical thing that you've shared today that a C-suite leader, or even for that matter, an entrepreneur, what would you say is the most practical thing that they can put into action immediately, that they need to put into action with what you've shared?
First and foremost, I believe something that got you excited, that little extra. And that little extra starts with you. It starts with the leader on top. Don't lie to your secretary. Don't lie to the person on the other phone, to your customer, telling your secretary to tell him or her that you're not in the office, because your secretary will also start lying to your customers. In the circle of trust, I mentioned that our cleaning lady at our family's business, which I'm a director, I'm not working anymore, but I'm a director, has a business card. It's called In Charge. Her title is In Charge of Cleaning. Not a cleaning lady, but In Charge of Cleaning, and we only have one lady, to be totally frank. And people ask me, how much does it cost? And I say, it doesn't cost much, but it creates a lot. It costs 30 euros, or let's say $30. And at the end of the day, that lady feels proud, because it makes her feel proud. And she drops it in restaurants when she asks for the check, for the bill. And she says, congratulations to the chef. And then they come back, because we sell catering equipment and tabletop supplies at Virardi. It's virardi.com, like my surname.com. My website is Michael Virardi. Our company's surname website is virardi.com. And they come and they buy ice cube machines, coffee machines, because of the reciprocity principle.
Yes.
So first and foremost, put that little extra into work. Start with yourselves. Be honest, be frank, be humble. Because mountaintops inspire leaders, but it's valleys that humble them and make them understand who they should be. Mm-hmm. And secondly, hire everyone to come and help. It's like being on a battlefield. Give the cleaning lady a rifle, yes. And that rifle is a business card. Give everyone training inside your company. Start with the cleaning lady. Start with the secretary, the top management. Because we have a saying in Cyprus, in Greece, in general, the fish smells from the head, either positively or negatively. We mean it negatively, but it can also be positively. So hire everyone back and give them all rifles to go out there, because it's a war zone. And as you said, there was only one air carrier, there was only one provider of telecom in the countries that you resided. Mm-hmm. So now it's not only one. There is no rule of one.
No. Monopolies are over.
Monopolies are over.
I think that in my experience of doing these interviews, and 8 years on the show, but also in my life, I find that there are people who do well in their life and are successful, and there are people who do well and are fulfilled, and those are different categories. One of the things that I find is that the people who are most fulfilled are the ones who live by a certain philosophy. They have a certain philosophy of life, and it's an ingrained belief that is there no matter what. It's in the peaks of the mountains, in the valleys. It's in the crisis. It's in the boom. Bear or bull market. How would you describe your philosophy of life? In a short, sort of succinct way.
I was happy and fortunate, and I'm still happy to have a dad that is also my mentor.
Huh.
And he gave me 2 pieces of advice. Let me share those with your followers and fans and friends. The first thing he told me, that was when I first came back from the university, when I was in the United Kingdom doing my degree and my master's. He said, Michael, whenever you turn your back to live, from let's say when this podcast finishes, there are 3 things that people can say about you: something positive, something negative, or nothing. The negative and the nothing for me, my son, is negative. So you are responsible for the positive memory that you leave behind on a daily basis. So that's the number 1 philosophy and number 1 advice. The second one is that my dad pulled out a pencil, he sharpened the pencil, and he let it stand on his desk.
Mm-hmm.
And then it dropped. And he said, this is what I paid for you to get in the United Kingdom. This is why I paid 100,000 UK pounds for the last 5 years for a degree and a master's degree. I sharpened you. I sharpened your edge. But this cannot stand on its own. You go out there, son, and find the experience that will hold you. And then he turned to tell me, and after 10, 20 years, when you feel that you don't need someone, I said, yes. That day, I said, yes. That day, and I said, that's the day that I made it, and that's the day that you lost everything, he said. So, humble. Everyone is a major player towards your success and towards their success. Respect each and every person that crosses your way and your path, irrespective of their income, status, gender, or race. And
Fantastic.
That's my philosophy.
Wow, you are a fortunate man. What a great insights and blessing that was from your dad.
You should meet my dad. He's not very well now. He's going for hemodialysis, has cancer. He's in his 80s, but the man is a genius. And I'm not saying that because he's my dad. And our friend Lahadzvi met the guy, and he was thrilled. He was recently in Cyprus.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Yes.
I would feel blessed to have that opportunity. That would be wonderful.
I'm very proud of him.
It's been wonderful having you on the show, Michael. It really has. I really want to thank you.
Likewise.
I think that the circle of trust is I mean, it's profound in its simplicity, and I think that because of that, it's easy for us to overlook any one of those elements. But like we said, the trust doesn't come at the beginning, it comes at the end. It comes as you work through all of those elements, and I think it's so vital. It's been wonderful having you here, and I want to thank you so much for being with us. Please tell our listeners, our viewers, where they can find out more about you, about bringing you in to speak, about your books, your videos, whatever it might be.
Of course. First and foremost, allow me to say, before I say anything to your viewers, a very big thank you to you for giving me the platform and the opportunity, for being such a great host, because it takes two to tango. And if this was successful, more than half of it belongs to yourself and your experience.
Very kind.
Secondly, a very big thank you to your viewers, fans and friends. Thank you very much. And you can find me at www.michaelvirardi, Michael Virardi, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Michael Virardi, VIRARDI.com. There's a brand new website coming up in less than 60 days. So what you see is the old website. There's a brand new one coming up. You can buy my books through Amazon. If you type my name, Michael Virardi, or Positive Impact, or even Crisis, Let's Beat It. but the safest bet is my surname, Michael Virardi. And in terms of my seminars and the rest, they can book me as a keynote speaker. I will be coming to New York in September. I'm also in Zurich twice in September and October, and in London teaching at UCL, University College London, in October, early October. And the rest, you can read my blog post from my website. You'll find it there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, sir. It's been an honor and a pleasure, real joy to have you on. And I want to say to everybody, I say this all the time to you, but I really want you to get this. Please don't just listen to the podcast. Do something with it. I know that most people play a podcast in the background, and I get that, and that's okay, that's fine. But if anything has sort of piqued you and made you go, oh, Michael's given us some real gems here, and I hope that you'll go back and you'll take notes, and more than anything, I really hope that you'll walk this into your leadership, walk in that circle of trust. And if you put Michael's name even into Google, put Michael Virardi's name into Google and put, in quotes, circle of trust, you're going to find out a lot of great stuff about him. The guy writes, he's got all kinds of really great resources available for you. So please get over there and get them, all right? Now remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive. These fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing talent, but also that they're losing that talent at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing, training, and developing your talent, only for them to leave before you've had that return on investment, as Michael pointed out, 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary, then come and talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets of your organization. With our assistance, you can reduce employee turnover by doing the relational things that we will show you how to do. And you can reduce your turnover by 80% in as little as 120 days, therefore evaporating those costs. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying stay curious, my friend, stay curious about how you've assumed trust is there and what you might need to do to really build it. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.